The Hindu woman has traditionally been the nucleus of the household, the sustainer of Hindu culture and values, the light which has kept the family together. Great women like Gargi, Pannadai, Rani Lakshmi Bai of Jhansi, Jijabai have kept this glorious tradition alive. The Hindu Women's Network strives to achieve its mission with the three-pronged approach of Shakti, empowerment, sadhana through samskaras, and seva, service to society. Our vision is to form a dynamic and vibrant national network of Hindu women living in America to foster communication and collaboration locally and nationally in the service of the society by sharing their skills, talents, and age old wisdom. The Hindu Women's Network was started with the objective to keep this flame alive, to re educate the present society about where we come from, our traditions, our values, and aspire to reach those heights again. Hindu Women's Network was started in 2012 as an initiative of VHP of America. The first conference was held in Staten Island, New York on June 24th, 2012. The primary objective for the conference was to highlight the various challenges faced by women and create an interactive network to guide them as a support group in their moments of crisis. To harness their collective power, women's conferences are being organized by the Hindu Women's Network Atlanta chapter annually since 2013. The organizers invited community leaders, inspirational speakers, and professionals to share their knowledge and expertise for realistic, actionable methods to practice and preserve the future generations' values and culture. The conference provided an interactive arena where participants voiced their opinions and were not just listeners, but actively shared their own experiences in providing spontaneous solutions to the issues. This cohesive environment promoted a tremendous personal interaction between participants. A young woman might get her issues resolved from the wisdom and personal life lessons of a senior who has gone through the same phase of life. The Hindu Women's Network of Cincinnati started in 2014 to cultivate Hindu women's three great abilities: Shakti, Seva, and Sadhana. In the last 6 to 7 years, the network has organized more than 20 events on various relevant topics attended by women from diverse backgrounds and age groups, such as mother daughter pair, sharing their experience on handling challenges of living in a dual culture, or how to have healthy relationship with yourself to build confidence. All events also have a most admired fun-filled activity, and each session ends with healthy snacks prepared by the volunteer core team. Doing seva is an important part of this network, such as celebrating birthdays of the residents living in a senior center. Residents feel loved and cared by the kindness of volunteers visiting them. We also stepped up during the current pandemic by making and distributing masks to the hospitals and provided food to needy families. This network has been coordinating and managing the Support a Child fundraising events for the last 4 years as part of their Seva goal to support destitute children in Bharat. Audience attending these events have given encouraging feedback that has motivated the organizing teams. Women felt empowered to discuss and share their points of view on this excellent platform to celebrate the sisterhood together. The woman is the figure that unfolds the divine potential that is present in every person. This is apparent in the concept of Ardhanarishwar, the concept of complementarity, that Purush and Prakriti are not in conflict with each other, but complement each other, coming together to form a complete whole. It is the Nari Shakti that completes the family. That is the energy that propels things forward. The Hindu Women's Network seeks to inspire every woman to achieve this ideal, to strengthen her own family and society, to achieve harmony through emotional, spiritual, and financial well being. Start.
Namaste. I am Jaya Asthana, one of the members of the core team at Hindu Women's Network. And on behalf of the Hindu Women's Network, it is my pleasure and distinct honor to welcome you to this panel discussion titled Hindu Legacy Through the Generations. These days, most Hindus are concerned about passing on their ancient Hindu values and traditions to the next generation. At the core of passing on such traditions is the Hindu family. We are proud to present 3 multi-generational families who will share their thoughts and experiences about passing on their values to the next generation. We are eager to listen and learn from our families and also to get inspired by our keynote speaker, Didi Maa Sadhvi Ritambharaji. Just some housekeeping requests. Please keep your devices muted to enjoy the full effects of the discussion. Also, we wanted to let you know that this show is being recorded. And now, I would like to introduce our Master of Ceremonies for today, Kritika Vyas. Kritika lives in Chicago. She has experience in mass communication and journalism. She has worked with news channels in India as a press reporter and content writer. She is deeply involved in one of the Hindu temples in Chicago, where her husband is a priest. Kritika is a proud mother of 2 children and is also pursuing her studies in Chicago. Without further delay, over to you, Kritika.
Thank you so much, Yaji, for a kind introduction. On behalf of Hindu Women's Network, it is my honor to welcome all our attendees to this event. Today's event is part of celebrating Hindu Heritage Month. Yes, every year, October will be celebrated as the Hindu Heritage Month to promote unity, educate others about our rich Hindu heritage, and also to discuss issues of concern. For more information, please check info@hindumonth.org. We will start our event with prayer sung by mother-daughter duo Srimati Bhagyajyoti Arun and her daughter Kumvibha Arun. Srimati Bhagyajyoti teaches Carnatic classical music and has actively trained several groups of folks in singing in local communities in Massachusetts area. Her daughter Kumvibha Arun is a 7th grader in the Advanced Placement Program in Central Middle School in Quincy, Massachusetts. She has been learning Carnatic classical music from her mother for the past 8 years. Let's enjoy the singing by this amazing duo.
प्रभो गणपते परिपालय मां सततं त्वां प्रभो गणपते प्रभो गणपते 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 वासुदेव विधिदेव गणार्चित क्वचित सुख फलदाता वासुदेव विधिदेव गणार्चित क्वचित सुख फलदाता वारणाख्य तनु धनुज विमर्दन वामदेव सुखवर्धन वारणाख्य तनु धनुज विमर्दन वामदेव सुखवर्धन प्रभो गणपते परिपालय मां सततं त्वां प्रभो गणपते 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 शङ्कराय गुरुरचित पदार्हण शङ्कित निलय विदारण शङ्कराय गुरुरचित पदार्हण शङ्कित निलय विदारण शङ्करास्य वर कमल दिवाकर शंकर रिपुकृत भीकरा शङ्करास्य वर कमल दिवाकर शंकर रिपुकृत भीकरा प्रभो गणपते परिपालय मां सततं त्वां प्रभो गणपते 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 भद्रिराजतनया सुखदात्मज अभ्यचूड गणराजा श्रीराजतनया सुखदात्मज अभ्यचूड गणराजा कृतदैत गणगज मुख सुन्दर कृष्णतीधर मन्दिरा कृतदैत गणगज मुख सुन्दर कृष्णतीधर मन्दिरा प्रभो गणपते परिपालय मां सततं त्वां प्रभो गणपते परिपालय मां सततं त्वां प्रभो गणपते 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 गणपते
Thank you, Bhagyajyoti ji and Vibha, for such an inspirational singing. Let me tell about Hindu Women's Network, who have organized this event. Hindu Women's Network's mantra is triple S, Seva, Shakti, and Sadhana, that you see here in the logo. Our goal is to form a vibrant network of Hindu women to promote communication and collaboration at local, national, and international level. To serve the society they live in by sharing their skills, talents, and age-old wisdom. As of now, we have 7 local chapters in different parts of USA. For more information about Hindu Women's Network, please check our website hwnusa.org. If any attendees have any questions, you are welcome to write them in the chat box and they will be answered later on in our program. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Toral Mehta ji. Toral Mehta is from Staten Island, New York. Toral has been an active and selfless sevak and humanitarian in both her Indian and local community since her young years. She is currently the Joint General Secretary of VHPN National, and in her Seva role, she educates children to help preserve our Sanatan Dharma teachings for our future generations. She is a sales and marketing professional and has worked with several Fortune 500 companies. She is formally trained in both Bharatanatyam and Kathak dance forms. Toral, I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Krutika ji. Namaste, everyone. Welcome to our Hindu Women Network program. We have a lot of exciting information and shared knowledge that we'll be sharing with you. To start with, I'd like to give you a little bit of an introduction. One of the tireless volunteers for Hindu Women Network, Yashwini ji Desai, was fortunate enough to meet with and conduct an interview with the beloved Didi Maa. Yashwini ji Desai is a founding member of Hindu Women Network Chicago chapter. She is an IT professional working at a Fortune 500 company based in Chicago. She is passionate, dynamic, and actively committed and dedicated in serving the Hindu Women Network mission of Seva, Shakti, and Sadhana. Now let me tell you a little bit about today's chief guest, Didi Maa. Sadhvi Ritambharaji, lovingly known as Didi Maa, is amongst India's most respected spiritual leaders and distinctive humanitarians. She received her Diksha from Swami Paramanandji at the age of 16, experiencing enlightenment and becoming his disciple. Scholars have said that she has operated outside of traditional boundaries of what would be considered the norm within female domains. It is this perseverance and passion that sets her apart from others. Didi Maa has opened several centers for women empowerment. She also runs orphanages for children and ashrams for widows. Didi Maa will be the interview that you're going to hear next. Please enjoy a one-on-one interview with the beloved Didi Maa.
हिंदू वुमेन्स नेटवर्क हमारा जो है वो BHP से इंस्पायर है एंड हमारा लोगो है सेवा शक्ति एंड साधना. हमारा अक्टूबर का जो इवेंट हो रहा है उसके अंदर आप कीनोट स्पीकर है और हमारा फैमिली वैल्यूज़ के ऊपर कैसे हम आगे जाएं आपका मार्गदर्शन चाहिए. तो हमारा पहला प्रश्न है, आप पारिवारिक मूल्यों को कैसे परिभाषित करते हैं?
जो पारिवारिक मूल्य है वो परिवार के शब्द में ही समा जाते हैं. समूह में रहना, अलग अलग मति, अलग अलग सोच और रुचि के लोगों का एक साथ होना, वो अपने आप में मूल्यवान होता है. सबसे बड़ी बात होती है पारिवारिक मूल्यों में अपने लिए नहीं जीकर अपनों के लिए जीना. ये सबसे बड़ा सूत्र होता है. और हम जो भारतीय और सनातनी सोच है हमारा जो चिंतन है, हम पूरे परिवार को ही हम विश्व में देखते हैं, वसुधैव कुटुंबकम की भावना के साथ. उसमें मनुष्य ही नहीं आते, पशु पक्षी जड़ जंगम सब आ जाते हैं. तो सबसे बड़ा सूत्र है, क्योंकि कभी भी कोई भी व्यक्ति अपनी इंद्रियों के लिए, मन के लिए, किसी भी तरह की अपनी इच्छाओं, महत्वाकांक्षाओं के लिए अगर वो जिएगा तो भी उसको तृप्ति मिलने वाली नहीं है, क्योंकि ये अंतहीन सिलसिला है. इसलिए सबसे बड़ी साधना है अपनों के लिए जियो, प्यार बांटो और स्नेह बांटो, सुविधा बांटो. अपनों को वस्तु ही नहीं दी जाती, अपनापन अपनापा दिया जाता है. वो एक बहुत बड़ा मूल्य होता है जो परिवार का आधार बनता है.
ब्यूटीफुल, बहुत ही बढ़िया, बहुत ही बढ़िया. पारिवारिक मूल्यों के साथ जो स्नेह और अपनापन की बात किया है वो बहुत अमूल्य चीज़ है. हम अगर आगे बढ़ते हैं तो बच्चों को सिखाए जाने वाले कुछ सबसे महत्वपूर्ण सनातन मूल्य वैल्यूज क्या है?
सनातन वैल्यू जो है वो सबसे बड़ी बात है कि हम ईश्वर की सत्ता को मानते हैं. एक क्रिएटर है, क्रिएशन जिसने किया है, रचनाकार है जिसकी ये सारी रचना है. और हम सब उसको जवाबदेह हैं। सबसे बड़ी बात यह है कि ईश्वरीय सत्ता को स्वीकार जब हम करते हैं तो हमें ये पता होता है कि हमारे सिर पे कोई है जिसको हमें उत्तर देना है, उसकी नजरों में हमें सही रहना है। तो उसका प्रतिरूप माता और पिता होते हैं घर के अंदर, जिसको हम ईश्वर का ही रूप मानते हैं। और ईश्वर को जब स्मरण करते हैं तो पहले त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव, वो इसी भाव के साथ हम ईश्वर को भी देखते हैं। तो बच्चों के लिए सबसे बड़ी चीज होती है माता पिता का एक सुपरस्टार की तरह एक्ट करना, क्योंकि बच्चे जो हैं वो पढ़ाने लिखाने से ज़्यादा देखने से सीखते हैं। अगर घर के अंदर अतिथियों का, अभ्यागतों का स्वागत हो रहा है तो वो सहज रूप से ही सबका आदर मान करने लग जाएंगे। और अगर चर्चा घर में ये हो रही है कि भाई घर में मेहमान आया, बेडरूम पता नहीं किसको छोड़ना पड़ेगा, अगर ऐसा वातावरण बनता है तो फिर बच्चा उसमें से कुछ ले नहीं पाता। दूसरी बात ये होती है कि जो विपरीतताएं होती हैं, प्रतिकूलताएं होती हैं, चैलेंज होते हैं, उसमें बड़ों का धैर्य रखना वो बच्चों को अपने आप शिक्षा दे देता है। के सच है विपत्ति जब आती है कायर को ही दहलाती है, सूरमा नहीं विचलित होते, पल एक नहीं धीरज खोते, विघ्नों में राह बनाते हैं, कांटों को गले लगाते हैं, मुख से न कभी उफ कहते हैं, जो आ पड़ता सो सहते हैं, खम ठोक ठेलता है जब नर, पर्वत के जाते पांव उखड़, मानव जब जोर लगाता है तो पत्थर पानी बन जाता है। तो जो धैर्य होता है, जो धीरज होता है, वो जब बड़ों के बीच में होता है तो बच्चों के बीच में अपने आप आ जाता है। मूल्यों को, परंपरा के प्रति इज्जत को, मान सम्मान को बड़ों के बीच में जब बच्चे देखते हैं वो अपने आप उसको वो उनको विरासत के रूप में मिल जाता है। तो बहुत कुछ ऐसा है जो घर के वातावरण से बालकों को प्राप्त हो जाता है। तो सबसे बड़े मूल्य तो मानव का मानवीय ही मूल्य है, मनुष्य को मानुषी भाव में रहना। और जैसे हम अपनी मातृभूमि के लिए संतान भाव रखते हैं, तो फिर हमें अब आप ही बता रही हो यशस्विनी कि आप विश्व हिंदू परिषद में, सेवा इंटरनेशनल में, एकल में, तो ये आपका उत्तरदायित्व, आपका बोध है। इसको बोलते हैं संतान भाव। मैं मेरी माँ का बच्चा हूँ तो मेरा क्या कर्तव्य है उसके लिए। तो सबसे बड़ी बात होती है बच्चों के लिए संबंध में सुंदर संवाद, उसमें सहजता और सरलता, वो बच्चों की को फिर अपने आप ही संपत्ति के रूप में, विरासत के रूप में प्राप्त हो जाती है।
बहुत बढ़िया, बहुत बढ़िया। जैसे हम देख रहे हैं दीदी माँ का अनबिलीवेबल एक्सप्लेनेशन है, बहुत ही इंस्पिरेशन मिल रहा है, एंड आई एम श्योर आवर ऑडियंस इज ऑल्सो गोइंग टू एंजॉय दिस लर्निंग फ्रॉम दीदी मास एक्टिविटीज एंड हर सेइंग। आगे बढ़ते हैं तो आधुनिक आज के परिवार प्राचीन समृद्ध भारतीय विरासत और संस्कृति को विशेष रूप से अमेरिका में रहने वाले और बाहर के देशों में रहने वाले कैसे संरक्षित कर सकते हैं?
देखिए, जहाँ तक भारतीयों की बात है, भारतीय जहाँ भी होते हैं उनका भारत उनके साथ होता है, उनकी प्रज्ञा में होता है, उनकी चर्या में होता है, उनके तौर तरीकों में होता है। भारतीय सनातनी परिवार का घर जो होता है वो अपने आप में एक देवालय होता है। हम लोग मंदिर में तो जाते हैं पर हमारा अपना भी एक मंदिर होता है। हम मंदिर में भगवान के दर्शन करते हैं पर हमें बहुत आनंद आता है जब हमारे ठाकुर जी, जिन पे हमारा अपना अधिकार रहता है, हमारा स्वत्व रहता है, और फिर जब हम देखते हैं कि घर में ईश्वर है, भगवान है, तो उनको भोग लगाना है, तो इसलिए हमारे भोजन में सात्विकता आ जाती है। तो फिर वो अल्पना है, रंगोली है, रंग है, दिए है, बाती है, व्रत है, उपवास है, इतनी विविधता और इतनी खूबसूरती से भरी है हमारी संस्कृति। और भारतीय नारी इसको अपने साथ लेके चलती है। वो उसकी विरासत की तरह, उसके हृदय की धड़कन की तरह, उसके श्वासों की सुहास की तरह होती है। और वो जो सांस्कृतिक हमारे मूल्य हैं वो पूरी दुनिया को भी आकर्षित करते हैं और हमें भी धन्य करते हैं। देखिए यशस्विनी भोजन तो भोजन ही है, लेकिन अगर वो भोग लग गया तो वो फिर प्रसाद हो जाता है ना। चलना तो चलना ही है, पर हम ईश्वर की सत्ता को स्वीकार करते हैं, इसलिए चलना परिक्रमा बन जाता है। सोना तो सोना ही है, पर ईश्वर की याद में सोते हैं तो वो समाधि हो जाता है। स्नान तो स्नान ही है, लेकिन हम अपने शरीर को भी भगवान का मंदिर मानते हैं तो वो अभिषेक हो जाता है। इसलिए हर चीज जब भाव के साथ, भावना के साथ जुड़ जाती है तो वो बहुत सुंदर विशेषण पा जाती है, उसकी एक अपनी शोभा है। तो भारत की संस्कृति का संरक्षण भारतीयों के द्वारा मैं तो आप यशस्विनी जैसे भारत से बाहर आती हूँ, अभी जैसे अमेरिका आई, तो मैं देखती हूँ कि यहाँ का जो भारतीय है, यहाँ का जो हिंदू है, सनातनी है, वो भारत में रहने वालों से ज्यादा हिंदू है। उसके पास ज्यादा अपनी संस्कृति धर्म के प्रति चाह है, निष्ठा है। तो ये बहुत खूबसूरत चीज है कि हम अपनी संतानों को विरासत में मकान, उनको हमारा मकान नहीं चाहिए होता, हमारे यहाँ के बच्चों को ना हमारा धन चाहिए होता है, ना हमारी जायदाद चाहिए होती है। उनको अगर हम दे सकते हैं तो अच्छे संस्कार दे सकते हैं। और मैं हमेशा कहा करती हूँ कि हम भारतीयों के बच्चे तुलसी के पौधे हैं, और तुलसी के पौधे वासनाओं की शराबों से नहीं, संस्कारों के गंगा जल से सींचे जाने चाहिए। और संस्कार जो होते हैं वो एक घर की आभा में एक माँ स्थापित करती है, उससे उनको अपने आप ही प्राप्त होते हैं। तो सारी दुनिया से अलग हटके, रंगों से भरी हुई, सुवास से भरी हुई, भक्ति भावना से भरी हुई हमारी संस्कृति का ये अमूल्य धरोहर है, जिसे हमें सौंपना है आगे की पीढ़ी को, फिर उसने सौंपना है आगे की पीढ़ी को। ये परंपरा से चलता है। और मैं समझती हूँ कि सबसे, जैसे हमारे देश के प्रधानमंत्री ने दुनिया में जाके कहा कि मुझे आपको देने को कुछ दिल करता है, मैं आपको श्रेष्ठ दूं, बड़ा दूं, सुंदर दूं, खूबसूरत दूं, तो मैं सोचता हूँ कि मैं क्या दूं। तो फिर मुझे लगता है कि श्रीमद् भगवत गीता के अतिरिक्त मैं आपको क्या दे सकता हूँ श्रेष्ठ, और आप भी उससे श्रेष्ठ और कुछ नहीं पा सकते, है ना। तो देने के लिए तो यही सबसे बड़ी बात है कि रामायण का संस्कार हो, गीता का ज्ञान हो, उपनिषदों का चिंतन हो, है ना, वेदों की ध्वनि हो, और प्रातः स्मरण हो, साय वंदन हो। ये संस्कृति है हमारी, ये धर्म है हमारा, और ये धर्म अध्यात्म की राह प्रशस्त करता है। तो वही हमारी संतानों के बीच में रहे, हमारे जीवन में रहे, तो अपने आप ही एक व्यक्ति, एक भारतीय चलता फिरता अपने आप में एक भारत है, अपने आप में एक संस्कृति है, अपने आप में धर्म की ध्वजा है। तो वो ये बातें जब अपने आचरण और व्यवहार में लेके चलता है ना, तो वो इस परंपरा को लेके चलता है। और अमृत का जिनको पहचान होती है, उनकी दो जिम्मेदारियां हैं, अमृत की रक्षा करना और अमृत को योग्य लोगों को बांटना। ये दो जिम्मेदारियां होती हैं। अमृतस्य पुत्र है हम, मृत्युंजयी है हम, तो इस मृत्युंजयी प्रसाद को अपनी संतानों को देने का ये सबसे बड़ा अच्छा तरीका है। अपने देवालयों को, मंदिरों को, अपने आसपास के शक्ति केंद्रों को। दूसरी बात है, आप जैसे संगठन की धार है, इसमें बच्चों का सम्मिलित होना, उनको पता होना चाहिए कि अपना इतिहास पता होना चाहिए, उनसे हिस्ट्री की बातें होनी चाहिए। हम लोगों को दादी नानियाँ कहानियाँ सुनाती थी, उसी से हम सनातनी हो गए। तो सबसे बड़ी चीज है माता पिता बच्चों से संवाद करें, उनको दें, बातों बातों से दें, सहजता से दें।
Wow. My dear friends and bhaginis, I'm sure Didi Maa has given so many wonderful tips, and it's unbelievable. Our body is the mandir, and हलता चलता मंदिर जो दीदी जी ने बताया। हमारी प्रश्नों की प्रश्नावली में हम थोड़े आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। तो नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन है, अधिक से अधिक संयुक्त परिवार का अवधारणा गायब हो रही है। आपके विचार से 3 या 4 पीढ़ियों के संयुक्त परिवार के रूप में एक साथ हम जुट के कैसे रह सकते हैं और उसके क्या लाभ हो सकते हैं, प्लीज बताइए हमको।
देखिए, भारत गुलामी के काल में भी हम अपने आप को, अपनी संस्कृति को बचा के रख सके, उसके पीछे कुटुंब बड़ा कारण था। हम राजनीतिक गुलाम थे, लेकिन हमारी आत्मा गुलाम नहीं हुई। उसके पीछे कारण कुटुंब था, और कुटुंब के केंद्र में होती है नारी, स्त्री, नदी और संस्कृति। इन तीनों का बहुत बड़ी भूमिका मनुष्य को बनाने में होती है। तो स्त्री जब आत्मविलोपी साधना करती है, उसे पता होता है कि भगनी होने का, पत्नी होने का, प्रेमिका होने का, बेटी पुत्री होने का, माता होने का क्या अर्थ है। वो जब ये समझती है, जब उसमें मातृभाव आता है, देखो स्त्री का जननी बनना ये बहुत बड़ी बात नहीं है, क्योंकि पशु पक्षियों में भी तो मादाएं जननी बन जाती हैं, पर माँ बनना ये बड़ी बात होती है ना। जननी बनकर माँ बनना, क्योंकि माँ सहेजती है, माँ बनाती है। तो जब वो अपने उन छोटी छोटी दैहिक और मानसिक इच्छाओं को होम करती है, तो वो उदात्त भावों की स्वामिनी बन जाती है। फिर उसमें परमार्थ आता है, फिर उसमें ये नहीं आता कि मुझे क्या मिला, उसका चिंतन होता है कि मैंने क्या दिया। उसके चिंतन में ये नहीं होता कि मैंने क्या पाया, क्या खोया, उसके चिंतन में होता है मैंने क्या देना है, क्या दिया। ये सूत्र है। और जब ये उस घर की गृहिणी के मन में होता है, फिर वो सबको बांध के चलती है, फिर उसका भाव बांटने का हो जाता है। और मैं अक्सर कहती हूँ यशस्विनी कि जो बटोरा जाता है वो विषाद होता है, और जो बांटा जाता है वो प्रसाद होता है। और ये सूत्र है कुटुंब को जोड़े रखने का। नहीं तो सभी एक ईगो का शिखर होते हैं, और शिखरों का कभी मिलन नहीं होता। शिखर अपने आप में खड़े हैं बस, उनका कभी मिलन नहीं होता। इसलिए अगर आप अहंकार के शिखर हैं तो आप एक साथ नहीं हो सकते। एक साथ होने के लिए आपको सहज होना होगा, विनम्र होना होगा, जल की तरह तरल होना होगा। ऐसी तरलता और ऐसा द्रवण जब हम में होता है, तब हम समूह में रह पाते हैं। फिर हम एक दूसरे को बदलने का प्रयास नहीं करते, हम दूसरे के लिए स्वयं में परिवर्तन लाने की कोशिश करते हैं। जब हम किसी दूसरे को अपनी तरह बनाने का प्रयास करते हैं, ये एक तरह का बलात्कार की तरह है। दूसरा भी रजिस्ट करेगा कि नहीं मेरा ये है, लेकिन जब हम सहज हो जाते हैं तो ढल जाते हैं, तो फिर सामने वाले में भी वो विनम्रता आ जाती है। तो कुटुंब को जोड़ने का एक ही सूत्र है, सहजता, सरलता और विनम्रता और परमार्थ दृष्टि। मैं नहीं, तू और तेरा, यहाँ से कुटुंब जुड़ता है। और मैं समझती हूँ हम भारतीयों का, अगर हम भारतीय हैं तो कुटुंब की दूरी है तो हम उस पे टिके हैं। तो अभी हमारे देश में भी पूरे समय ऐसे सीरियल चलाए जाते हैं सैटेलाइट चैनलों के द्वारा, ऐसी सामग्री दृश्य श्रव्य परोसी जाती है कि स्त्रियों को पैरों की जो पायल है वो बेड़ी लगने लगती है, जिम्मेदारियां जो है वो बंधन लगने लगती हैं। और ये तो सोच की बात है, और आप अगर ब्रेन वॉश कर दोगे तो ऐसा ही होगा। और स्त्री का मन हिल गया तो कुटुंब टूट जाएगा, वो टिक नहीं पाएगा। इसीलिए 3-4 पीढ़ी के लोग साथ में, और आप देखो यशस्विनी, मैं वात्सल्य का कार्य करती हूँ, वहां तो कोई रक्त के रिश्ते नहीं है। वहां पे नानी है, मौसी है, माँ है, बेटे हैं, बेटियां हैं, कोई ब्लड रिलेशन नहीं है। फिर भी वो 3-4 पीढ़ियां एक छत के नीचे रहती हैं। उसका लाभ आपने पूछा कि आप देखो कि अगर व्यक्ति थोड़ा सा संपन्न होता है तो उसे लगता है कि मेरे घर में कोई मेड होनी चाहिए मेरे बच्चों के लिए, जो घड़ी देखेगी और देखेगी मेरा टाइम हो गया, भाग जाएगी। लेकिन जो दादी माँ होती है ना, अपने नाती पोते को छाती से लगा के रहती हैं, प्रेम देती हैं, स्नेह देती हैं, वो बड़ों का 60 साल का व्यक्ति जब 8 साल के बच्चे का गुरु बन जाता है, सोचिए उसकी जिंदगी भर का अनुभव उस बच्चे को प्राप्त हो रहा है और स्नेह के साथ, प्रेम के साथ प्राप्त हो रहा है। मैंने देखा कि जो पति पत्नी अकेले रहते हैं, एक आधा बच्चा होता है, तो अगर पति नाराज हो गया तो पत्नी के लिए, उसकी स्त्री के लिए प्रेम की रसधार सूख गई। कुटुंब में क्या होता है कि पति अगर थोड़ा सा बेरुखे से हुए तो जेठ कहते हैं अरे चिंता मत कर, देवर ठिठोली करके भाभी का मन बहलाते हैं, ननद भी आके गुदगुदाती है, सासू माँ कहती है तू फिक्र ना कर, आ जाएगा रास्ते पे। तो उसकी एक जगह से प्रेम की धार थोड़ी सूखती है, 10 जगह से उसको प्राप्त होती है, इसलिए वो कभी आत्महत्या की कल्पना नहीं करती। तो इतने सारे रिश्तों में, और देखो भारत की स्त्री, अभी तो मुझे बहुत बुरा लगता है जब हर संबंध को अंकल और आंटी कह दिया जाता है। चाची होने का अपना मतलब है, ताई होने का अपना उसकी गरिमा है, वो बुआ भी है, वो मौसी भी है, वो भाभी भी है, वो ताई भी है, वो चाची भी है। देखिए तो एक स्त्री कितने सुंदर, कितने सारे रिश्ते और संबोधनों से पुकारी जाती है, कितनी भरी पूरी होती है वो। तो मैंने देखा कुटुंब बड़ा भी होना चाहिए, कुटुंब संयुक्त भी होना चाहिए, उसमें आत्मीयता का पुट डाल दिया जाए तो बहुत धन्यता होती है। और आप देखो यशस्विनी, श्रीमद् भागवत जी की कथा होती है तो कथा में पूरा समूह जुड़ता है ना, तो हम लोग कहते हैं कि भागवत जी समष्टि के कल्याण का शास्त्र है। भगवान इतने खुश क्यों होते हैं? क्योंकि सारे भक्त मिलकर बैठे हैं। ठीक है, मेरी माँ का जन्मदिन है, उसके 4 पुत्र हैं। सुबह वो एक आया, माँ हैप्पी बर्थडे, आज तेरा जन्मदिन है। उसकी बहू कहती है चुप, जल्दी जल्दी चल, वो आ जाएगी उसके पहले चल। अब बारी बारी सब आके माँ को प्रणाम करते हैं, माँ को खुशी होती है, पर अगर सब इकट्ठे होके आके बैठे माँ के पास, फिर माँ की खुशी का कोई अंत नहीं होता। तो इसी तरह चाहे मातृभूमि को प्रसन्न करना हो, चाहे ईश्वर को प्रसन्न करना हो, चाहे अपनी अम्बा माँ को प्रसन्न करना हो, सबको समूह में, कुटुंब में ही रहने से उचित होता है, सुखी होते हैं, सब धन्य होते हैं, एक दूसरे को बल होता है।
वाह। सो डियर भगिनीज एंड फ्रेंड्स, जो दीदी माँ ने बताया वात्सल्य ग्राम का उनका प्रोजेक्ट है, वी विल बी ऑल्सो डिस्क्राइबिंग व्हाट इट इज अबाउट, and she's actually taking care of orphan kids and even ladies in the group from the local community, and even जो समाज के बिछड़े हुए लोग हैं उनको लेके कुटुंब बनाते हैं। तो उसका एक पारिवारिक भावना और प्रेम और आत्मीय संबंध के साथ उनको संस्कार मिलता है, वो उन्होंने कितना अच्छा मैसेज दिया है।
Thank you so much to Yashji and to Didi Maa. A very, very insightful and just a very, very well done conversation with each of them. So one of the things I'd like to do for everybody is give you a brief summary in English of the enlightening words that we did hear from Didi Maa about Hindu values, Hindu family values. Hindu families sustaining the principle of Sutra is living for loved ones and not for the fulfillment of one's own aspirations, but that for the kutum or the family. From a very young age, a child knows that there is a divine providence and we will accept that authority at all times. The first manifestation of that power is seen in mother and father. A child sees the strength during tough times as the parents sustain their faith and follow through. In every Sanatani Hindu home, there is a mandir or an altar where the family offers prayers every day. On special festivals like Diwali, Aarti and Prasad is offered. The child carries that samskar or value throughout their lifetime. A joint family provides moral support to its members during emotional stress. India was politically crippled due to foreign rule, yet the spiritual soul of Bharat remained free due to strong family structure. The soul of Bharat is its culture, rivers, and women. Every mother is a pivot of the family who only thinks that I have to give and not what will I receive. Family bonds when everyone behaves with humility, honesty, and straightforwardness. There should be no forceful efforts to change others. Rather, accept every member and change one's own self as it needs to adjust to their needs and the needs of others. Every member, a mother in the family has multiple roles as a wife, a sister, a daughter, an aunt, or could be a few of them at the same time. If motherhood sustains, the Hindu society will also sustain. Now, I'd like to give you a little bit of information about what we're going to be talking about today. Hindu legacy through the generations. For many generations, living in a joint family was the absolute norm in India and in Indian culture, as well as other cultures around the world. One would learn from their elders and have their wisdom and culture passed down to them without them even realizing it. Though many families do practice this way of living today, it is not as common anymore. Today, it is a distinct pleasure to be able to talk in depth with three families that have lived in a home with multiple generations under one roof, and on top of that, that is occurring here in the United States. Welcome to the Dave, Upadhyay, and Patel families, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to share your multi-generational experiences with us today. So I do ask if each of you can introduce yourselves. I'll start with the Upadhyay family. Hi, welcome. If you could please introduce yourselves.
Yes, hi, good
Tell us a
afternoon.
little bit about your family.
Yes, absolutely. My name is Sheetal Patel. I am part of the Upadhyay family, but I'm married now. Next to me, I actually have my mom, Saroj Upadhyay, my grandma, Nirmala Upadhyay. I have my niece, Anaya Upadhyay, my sister-in-law, Parul Upadhyay, and my mother-in-law, Varsha Patel. I wanted to introduce everybody because obviously it's multi-generations, but it's also before marriage and clearly after marriage, because I am also the proud mother to two beautiful boys, and my family lives with my mother-in-law as well, so they get the privilege of also growing up in a multi-generational family. So yeah, that's my family.
Thank you so much, Sheetal. The Dave family, can you please introduce yourselves and let us know who's here?
Okay, namaste. My name is Hansa Dave and my mother-in-law Nirmala Dave.
Yes, Krishna.
And my daughter Kea. And my granddaughter Ashi and another granddaughter Millie. So we have Ba, myself, Kea, and her daughters. So we are, and I live in Indianapolis. We live together for 43 years. And Kea lives in Charlotte with 4 kids, right now 2. And another daughter, she's in Chicago, but she cannot join today. So that's about my family. And I have my sister-in-laws, like Ba's daughters. They are here too. They are nearby our house. So we have big family here. They just live 5 minutes apart.
Great. Thank you so much and welcome to the Dave family. And last but not least, the Patel family. If you can please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sonal Patel. I have 2 daughters, Mira and Ella. They will be joining us in the program in a little while. They're not here right now. My parents, Dr. Jagandra and Neela Patel, live on Staten Island. They immigrated there in the early 1970s. My ba, Kamra Rambai Patel, also lives with them. She has lived with us since I was born. We do not live under the same roof. I live in Manhattan with my daughters. I have 3 siblings. My brother Kush and his wife Deepa also live in Manhattan. They have a 2-year-old son. They are expecting their 2nd child. My brother Love and Kush, my brother Love also lives here in Manhattan. So we're all very close. And I have a sister who lives in England. So she is across the pond with her 2 daughters, Izzy and Anaya. And so, you know, in my family, multi-generationally, we are from ages 0 to 92. And even though we don't live in the same, under the same roof, we have a very, I like to say, a horizontal multi-generational family, but because my parents were the first to immigrate here, they're collectively 7 siblings, and their families all lived in our house with us in Staten Island at some point. So we have a very large Indian family, and we're all very, very close and connected.
Thank you very much, Sonal Patel family. Welcome to all of our families. Before we go ahead with our questions, I just want to remind our audience, if you have any questions at all, please save it for at the end. The other thing that you can do is you can always type in, if you're comfortable, in the chat, you can type in any questions you have, and then we will actually bring it up at the end of our discussion with our 3 families. So here we go. I'm going to give this question to the Upadhyaya family first. Please share with us the benefits that you have experienced in growth, support, and commitment to each other.
Yes, absolutely. So for starters, you know, we not only have lived together, the people you just were introduced to, but we also had a point where we had my extended family also staying with us. So what we've realized is, as a family collectively, it's been wonderful for us, especially I'm speaking for Naya and myself as American-born Indian women. It's been crucial for us to really pick up on religion and culture and custom via exposure, and having a family, like in multiple generational family under one roof, has been paramount in us developing a sense of understanding of our culture, of our sanskars, of you know, just general customs. I definitely want to give credit where credit is due. My grandma was the first one who probably introduced me to so much like regular prayer. You know, I would sit with her and she would do seva, and we would I would learn. I would just kind of try to mimic anything she was saying. I didn't understand what was happening. And there were often times where maybe she didn't, because of the language barrier at some point when I was very young. It was probably pretty hard for her to explain to me why we were doing what we were doing, but I started doing it just mimicking. And then my mom was able to step in and start explaining to me why I was doing the things I was doing and why I was saying what I was saying. And I think that same truth holds for my niece, and she also learned via hearing bhajans and hearing us all get together and pray. And these things were really important for us because we knew that as American-born Indians, we were going to learn English, we were going to learn everything at school, and we might not be able to go to Swadhyay or like Sunday school or something. So being in a family where we were given this kind of wisdom was, you know, priceless.
Thank you so much. Now, how far do you think you've succeeded in maintaining the cohesiveness to your satisfaction?
I think we've done a great job. I think now that we have separated after being under one roof via marriage, college, such and such, we've been able to communicate, you know, and we do use technology to our advantage. My children see my parents and my ba every day at breakfast time. They get to video chat with them every day. You know, so I think because we established such a strong foundation to begin with, the distance didn't change very much of anything. If anything, it made us grow a little fonder of each other because we were able to count on being able to make that phone call, like, oh, mom, what do I need to do this puja? What do I need to do this if I don't know, right? So it's been really helpful to have that foundation that was so strong to begin with.
Thank you so much, Sheetal.
Absolutely.
For the Patel family, so Sonal, please share the benefits that you've experienced in growth support and commitment to each other.
Let me count the ways. It is, I have to say, I did listen to the keynote, and I will speak personally on this concept of motherhood. And, I think for me and my family, the women have been the matriarchs in so many unspoken ways. And, my ba raised me for a few years when my parents were working. And, when I was working full time as an attorney, my parents raised my children. And I think the benefit of, in our family, the growth and the support that I have received to be able to grow as myself as a woman and as a mother has really come from the support that I have from my entire family. And we really do, I think, I remember when we were younger, my dada would call all of the neighborhood Gujarati kids together and teach them English. Thro, you may remember, in the basement.
I was in that class.
in the basement of my parents' house. And we continue that kind of tradition of teaching each other and learning from each other across the community, but certainly in our family for many, many years. And the countless support that I have in raising my own children now, from a spiritual perspective, from a logistical perspective, with the samskaras and the values of Hinduism has been really special. And I think that I feel very fortunate to have that kind of support in my own life, and we support each other. So it's a nice pillow, so to speak, that there is such a loving, large family, anyone you can go to at any time for anything. And we are committed to each other. We have our differences, but certainly we are committed to being the best family we can to each other. And I think that's really great.
Thank you, Sonal. Well, you actually led into the second question, is how far do you think you have succeeded in maintaining this cohesiveness to your satisfaction?
Yeah, I say we have maintained it, certainly to my satisfaction, because we actually happen to like each other. We don't always agree with each other. We're not the same people, God knows, and we're very different in our personalities and in our lives. But we're all dedicated to maintaining that cohesiveness. And that is very important. And my children learn that now too. This is family. Family comes first. That is, the number one rule in my home. And it is we have our differences, and we have our factions, so to speak. We have a number of different WhatsApp chats to keep us all together, and we see each other at different times, and we all have different kinds of relationships with each other. And now the fourth generation has its own relationships with each other. So I think we've done actually a quite remarkable job. And I think it's because we're all committed to doing that.
Thank you so much, Sonal. So now I'm going to go over to the Dave family. Even though you don't live under the same roof, how have you passed on the values that are important to you and the next generations and the next generations?
So we have a spokesperson, Kea, but I'll tell you, we don't live together. But when we were together, whatever we were doing at home, kids just learned that way. And because we already passed that, we were together at the time, like we used to do aarti, so kids come at the aarti, we ring the bell and they come. We are vegetarian, they are vegetarian. And common is our Hindu dharma. So we all believe in that. So it was easy to pass them. It was not hard for me. With my even grandkids also, because we live apart. We don't live in the same, like Kea lives in Charlotte and Chicago. But we make sure we see each other so often. Grandkids come in summertime or fall or anytime, they just come and live with our house. And we have grandma, we have whole family. So for us, for me, it's not hard. Whatever I'm doing, I'm passing them. But Kea can go ahead.
Yeah, namaste, everyone. So I agree with everything Mom said. One of the things is that we are a very close-knit family. And I think one thing that Mom mentioned was that it's like small things make a big impact. So for example, she gave you the small thing, like when my sister and I were growing up, if we heard the country, we knew it was Aarti time. Now I have 4 kids myself. So what do I do every evening? I, do the gantry, and my kids know that it's time to do arati. Where did I learn that? I learned that from my parents. Big things, those are small things. Big things, like she said, we're vegetarian, and that's really important to us. So we were raised vegetarian. And so for my family, I think that's important for me. So I've taught them why it's important for us to be vegetarian. So whether it's a small thing or whether it's a big thing, the impact is that if you've seen this growing up, and if you've had people lead by example, which, I had my parents lead by example, and my husband and we try to lead by example, it really resonates in the kids. And the other thing that has kept us together, even though we don't live together, is communication. So never take communication for granted. Me and my mom, we talk like 5 times a day. Sometimes it's me, my mom, my sister, my kids are FaceTiming. So when you're communicating, I think that is really important. And even if it's a small like chat or a message that says JSK, Jai Shri Krishna, right? In the morning and at night, I think it's very important for us to maintain that through communicating. So that's what we try to teach our children too, is that small things make a big impact. Just lead by example, and also what they see us doing, then they'll pass that on to their generation. So it's almost like, it's like you're investing in, and making yourself better so that your kids see who you are, so they can pass that down from generation to generation.
So with all of this and learning this, what are some of the difficulties that you feel like you've faced?
Yeah, I mean, I think my mom will say she had different difficulties when my sister and I were growing up, because that was a different time. I will talk about right now. We are living in a world where we have a lot of social media and outside influences that affect our children, right? Screen time is one of those things that is every parent's nightmare, especially in this generation, right? And so, and my oldest son is 10, and we gave him a phone that just does text and talk, not data, because of the long school rides. But, those are things that we face as challenges to be able to maintain that closeness in the family and communicate if, the TV's on and that stuff. So I think, the outside influences that they experience through social media and just overall just screen time, I can foresee that being, challenging as they grow up. But hopefully we continue to share with them what's important to us and our values, and that will resonate with them.
So I like to add here, Torun, like this, my grandson Veer, he got phone, and we are worried about social media, everything, but it's easy for me. I can communicate with him every morning. So I said, Nani, I'm in the bus. Nani, Jai Shri Krishna. Nani, how are you doing? So I said, this is easy for me now. So both ways we can see.
Yeah, I mean, it's pros and cons, right? It's another avenue for communication. Now my mom has access to him every day, all day. So it's, yeah, I think it's, it depends on how you look at it.
Well, it sounds like all of you are finding your way through what could be a very difficult time. So social media, absolutely, it is wonderful in a way to be able to keep in touch with each other. Each of your families have mentioned FaceTime, being able to video chat, which is a great thing. Social media also comes with a little bit of where you want to try to be careful in terms of the kids and how they use it, how much they use it, when they use it. Another thing that all of the families, if you've listened to what they're all saying, they're all committed to each other. They want to be able to pass on what they're learning from one generation to the next. So a great example is the gantry of the bell. Yes, you hear the ringing, and one of the things that resonates with all of you is your kids and your kids' kids are learning through your actions, right? If you didn't take action from the smallest thing to the biggest thing, they wouldn't be learning it. So I do appreciate you all giving us examples and showing us, because it really does resonate through from generation to generation. So since I have the Dave family talking, I will continue on with you guys. How do you manage responsibilities as you work together?
I can start here. So for us, like I said, we're very close. So me, my mom, and my sister, it actually becomes quite easy for us to divide and conquer. And I'll give you kind of an example. Like we're all very much involved in our respective mandirs, right? So when it comes time to doing any type of mandir project or need help with like Balgokulam or anything, my mom calls and it's like, hey, I need to Zoom invite. Can you do it? Or I need to draft up a flyer. So we're just a phone call away. And so even though we don't live together, we are very good at dividing and conquering responsibilities because our common values are the same. We are connected through Hindu Dharma. And what that means is that if it's Sunday morning, we're all at our respective mandirs teaching. So mom is in the Indianapolis temple. My sister Preya is in the Chicago temple. I've been a teacher here at the Charlotte Mandir for the last 16 years. I'm at the Charlotte temple. So that those common values really bond us. And so when it comes to responsibilities, I think about not like day-to-day house chores and things because we don't live together, but I think about like big picture responsibilities. And that is, how do we pass our sanskar? How do we continue our Hindu Dharma? How do we pass this on to our children? We even have something called family satsang. So we do that with like my mamas and everybody once a month where we all get on a Zoom call and we discuss one topic thing. My mom and my mama teach our kids Gita classes. That's a project we do. Yoga sessions every Saturday morning, all empowered by Zoom. Thank you, technology. So that's how I think about when I think about responsibilities. It's these projects that bind us together on a national level that are all connected to our Hindu Dharma.
It's so true. Zoom really has changed everything for us. So how do the different generations manage conflicts and resolutions as they arise, especially not necessarily being under the same roof?
Well, mom has been living with her mother-in-law for 40 plus years, so I'll let you handle that one.
So yes, see, I have been living 43 years with my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law. They just live nearby us, so we have a big family here. So yeah, it's a difference of opinion everywhere, but we have to slowly resolve those things. And for me, spirituality is the main thing. So if something come out conflict, but spirituality helps. So just let it go, and we just difference of opinion there, but we just respect each other and we solve those problems. And with my daughters, I don't have conflict, but sometimes the opinion difference. So have this happen, and we try to solve this. And now we have grandkids, so we have to think about grandkids too. Sometimes they ask why we do this, why should we do this, why I have to put the bindi on, or why I have to chaniya chodi on right now. Then we have to tell them this is the small things. We have to talk with them, and sometimes they refuse to wear, kurta pajama when we are going in mandir. Then I have to buy new one. Oh, this is the nice. We have to take pictures, something like that. So we have to solve those conflict, and vegetarian is the main thing for us too. So I remember last time my another daughter, Preya's son, Arjun, he's a 4-year-old. So he said, Nani, in school, one kid was eating egg. And I said, we don't eat that, right, Nani? I said, okay, that's fine. So some of the things I have to tell other people is doing, that's fine too. But whatever we teach, so some of the things, but I don't have so much conflict with my family. So this is, I can pass this to. But mom wants to say something too, so she'll say something. Right? She wants to say something, okay?
ये है तो बहुत बड़ा सवाल. प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करना है कोई सीधी बात तो नहीं है. बहुत समझदारी से काम लेना पड़ता है बच्चों के साथ. आप धीरे से समझाओ, समझ जाए तो वो आप भाग्यशाली हैं. वैसे मेरा तो अनुभव है, कुछ तो कहता रहना पड़ता है, बच्चों को समझाना पड़ता है, भाई ये ठीक है, ये गलत है. ये तो आप बचपन से कहते आओ, तब कहीं उन पे थोड़ा असर पड़ता है और सीखते हैं, बच्चे करते हैं. वो बोलते हैं कि हमारी दादी ने ये कहा, हमारी माँ ने ये कहा, हमारी नानी ने ये कहा. उनको याद रहता है. जो अच्छी सिखाई हो, अच्छा उनको सिखाया है, तो वो सीखेंगे, जरूर सीखेंगे, और प्रॉब्लम भी सॉल्व हो जाएंगे वैसे.
Okay.
और तो ज्यादा अपने अपनी बात है ये सब.
Can you say in English then?
Yeah, I was basically saying, look, there are certain things you have to teach your kids. You have to tell them. Kids are like, they're like that clay that, and she didn't say this, but you can mold them however you want to mold them, right? So continue to teach them and tell them problems will be there. Nobody is perfect. No family will not have problems, but they'll resolve eventually, as long as there's love and the kids are also listening very closely to what everybody is saying. So everybody's watching.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to move on to the Upadhyay family. How do you manage the responsibilities as you all work together?
Yeah, so when we were living all together, we learned that the best way to do it without too much conflict was really to play to each other's strengths. That's something I appreciate about my families. I think living with the whole family, and then even when my extended family came, I think we really quickly learned that there are people, we have very strong personalities in our household. So it seemed like it was a lot easier to resolve conflict or to, live day to day, making sure that we recognize that each person has their own strengths. And, those are the people we go to when we need, guidance. So if we need, spiritual guidance, we knew that my mom and Ba were like, they were the strong religious, faith-based pillars of our family. And then even with my Bobby, when she came into the house, she was the soft-spoken, like she was thoughtful and soft-spoken. And so she was the person who would approach anything with grace. And, and that was something we needed too, because I was kind of like a little firecracker, so I knew where I could turn. And whenever my family members needed a little bit of the fight, a little bit of that push, they knew that they can turn to me for that. So I think as a family, we really learned that the best way to reach the same end goal, which we all had, which was to see each other thrive. And that was an unspoken truth in our family, that we want to respect one another and we want to see one another succeed. Especially with extended family members coming in, it's always difficult, even at a young age, to not feel a sense of competition with your cousins. And, these are different backgrounds that we're coming from. My family that was born and raised in India, and me being born and raised here, there was always a sense of competition, but then ultimately it was like, let's level the playing field here, and let's talk about what our end goal is. And that's really to see each other do very well. And, the best avenue for that was respect and understanding. And so I think that's basically how we managed to, function as a family unit, both together, and even when we separated, we had established that. So it was really nice to know who we can turn to for whatever we needed.
How do the different generations manage the conflicts and resolutions as they come up?
Yeah, so when it comes to conflict, I'm like I was saying, that we all have very strong personalities. So I think communication was key, and I think we've done a pretty good job of being able to pick up the phone, or thankfully we've all lived close enough for so long that we can go to each other's houses and talk it out. We can address whatever the issue is. So yeah, I think that's been probably the most important thing, is that we're able to talk about it.
With all of that, explain to me some of the challenges that your families have faced, whether it be first generation, fourth generation, and how you handled it.
Okay, yeah, well, the most obvious would probably be that as the generations have, like my children, for example, what they understand is so different from what
Do I tell you a story?
Understands,
Do I tell you a story?
What
I was telling you guys have to listen. Like, I got some of the books from Chinmay Mission.
Is there someone talking? I'm sorry.
So good book.
You know what? I'm trying to see if I can.
Can we unmute them if possible?
I just muted them.
Okay, great.
Go ahead. Sorry about that, Sheetal. Go ahead.
No.
At first, I thought it was coming from your background.
I was like, wait, my kids aren't here.
Sorry about that.
No, that's totally fine. I think it's just been that from one generation to another, language has been a huge, probably a huge issue, because I learned Gujarati from exposure from Ba and my mom, and being in a house where Gujarati was frequently spoken. And then for us, like at my house, my mother-in-law speaks Gujarati to my boys, and they pick up on it, but they can't respond the same way. So I think as far as challenges go within a family, I would say that language has been a little bit of an issue from generation to generation, I would say. But you know, we make sure that we're explaining everything and translating everything, and so things don't get lost in translation. So that's one of our big ones.
Sort of like this program, right? We've had Hindi, we've had English, and in order for everybody to understand. So that totally comes across. So Patel family, Sonal, similar question. So how do you manage responsibilities as you all try to work together?
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to echo what some of the other speakers said, that, you know, the responsibilities in our family we really do try to manage them by everyone's strengths. You know, we know what some people like to do and are good at doing, and what other people just are not interested in for their own personal reasons. And so I think it's very fluid in my family. We don't have assigned roles, although some sometimes do, but we do try to be as open and as accommodating around our own needs and responsibilities. Because let's face it, you know, at every generation and in every individual nuclear family, everybody's needs are different, and everybody, you know, carries out responsibilities in their own way. So in our family, we don't have, and to, you know, to Kaya's point too, it's not about, you know, who's going to do the dishes, because, you know, I do the dishes in my house every day, you know, but it's really more about on a spiritual level. So for example, if you know, my kids go to mandir with my parents, I do not take them to mandir every Sunday. Our Sundays are not the same, you know, as other families. You know, my dad wakes up every morning and prays in his bed, and we know when the girls and I wake up, we know that is praying in bed, and that brings a spirituality into our home. You know, the same thing with the ganchi, right? My mom does puja every morning. So when we stay on Staten Island, all the kids know that's where they go. They wake up and they make their way over to the mandir in my parents' bedroom. But in my house with my children, you know, I believe so much more in the concept of spirituality than rituality. So we don't have a lot of rituals that we do around Hinduism in my home. I like to think we live out the values and the morals and the traditions in the way that we behave towards each other and the way that we live in society. So, but when I want them to get, you know, more of the ritualistic parts of religion, that's where my parents come in, my grandmother comes in. So, you know, like I said, it's very, it's pretty fluid, and I think we play to our strengths, and we play to the ways in which we think, you know, we can be good people in society. And it doesn't, in my family, always revolve around, you know, doing puja or going to the mandir. It's really about supporting each other as people and good citizens in the world.
Thank you so much, Sonal. How do you feel the different generations manage conflict and resolution when they do arise?
So it's really interesting. You know, I think we have a lot of conflict in my family about how to resolve conflict, right? And so my dad, for example, he will tell you, you know, best way to resolve conflict is to be selfless and to forgive and to forget, and always put other people's needs before yours, and then you won't have conflict. And I honestly couldn't disagree more. I do think that there is, I think the role of family is to create a safe, open space for people to be themselves, for them to live their own conflicts and the conflicts with other people. I think that there is, you know, some benefit in some ways to being selfless and growing yourself, being selfish and, you know, really giving yourself the opportunity to grow as a person, because that's what you bring to the family. And not selfish like, oh, I'm going to ignore your needs, selfish. But sometimes I do think the idea of selflessness really does take away from sort of the growth of the soul and the way that I see Hinduism as really promoting it. And the concept of forgiveness and forgetting is, it to me seems I know forgiveness is very important, but you have to give people the comfort, and you have to know that your family is going to love you no matter what. And you have to actually, in my opinion, listen, not just listen for the sake of listening and then dismiss it. Frankly, that does happen in my family quite often, but really listen and hear what that person is saying and really come together in a way where your minds and your hearts match. And we try to do that. I mean, you'll see it's funny, we sit around the dining table whenever we're in Staten Island. You know, large families are always pulling in chairs from the kitchen table, you know, just for all of us to sit around. And there always comes a point where my dad will start to say something very didactic about Hinduism. And there's lots of challenges because I think that people in today's generation need to be critical thinkers, and they need to really understand the why. You know, in our dry runs, Shito spoke about this a lot, so I'm sorry if I'm stealing your thunder on this, but the why is very, very important. My dad told my younger daughter, Ella, the story of Eklavya, and you know, we had a conversation at the table where we disagreed on sort of the morality behind that story and what was right and what was wrong. And I think that's what, and she was 9 at the time, and she challenged me. My dad and I are always battling, but she went to my dad's defense and said, no, Mommy, that is right. This is what this story means, and this is very important. You know, and so I like those kinds of conversations. I want my children to challenge what they're hearing, and that, because until they can frame and understand it in their own minds, they're not going to carry it out in a genuine, honest, and authentic way. So I think for us, we are not a family that is scared of conflict, but I think that's what makes us very strong.
So you talked about conflict resolution in a way. What are some of the challenges that you all face? Because now, especially with people having very strong opinions about something, which does happen, and I think honestly we all grow from that as long as we could talk about it. But explain to us some of these challenges that come along with that.
Yeah, I think there's the core challenge is, you know, we love each other so deeply, and we don't have to agree. And there are times where we do have to let go, right? And we understand why we're letting go. We're doing it out of love, and we're doing it out of, you know, just rightness. It's the right thing, you know? And I think some of the challenges are really that, I mean, we live in a very multicultural world. And I think that there are, you know, our community in particular, I will say, has a long way to go in embracing multiculturality and multiraciality and multi-religion and everything else. My children are biracial and bireligious. My dad took my younger daughter to VHP camp a few years ago when she was 8 years old. She had a terrible experience. The other girls continually challenged her Indianness, excluded her, made her feel very unwelcome in the Indian Hindu community. And these actions go so against Hinduism is an inclusive religion. Hinduism is a open space, right? And I find that, you know, sometimes the challenges that I face in my family, we all have different opinions along, you know, across generations and just in our lives. And so the challenges to me come from just the challenges of living in a world that is not India, right? You know, my closest friends, I have a lot of close Indian friends, but they're all not all Indian, you know, and we are all exposed to different cultures and different ethnicities. And I think that the challenge that I have personally in raising biracial girls and raising bi-religious and you know, is that it's the diversity and the equity and the inclusion that we bring to our families, within our families, but also within our community, that I think can be very challenging. And people have different opinions of that within my own family, even though my family is actually, I will say, quite exceptional when it comes to understanding this idea of inclusion. But it's hard, right? Because there are a lot of influences in the world, and you can't just, you know, beat over a kid's head. We are Hindu, and these are what you have to believe, and this is what you have to believe. I don't believe in that. And so we create an open space where we know that we're protecting each other. And I think it's worked well for my family.
Well, I do thank you very much. I am sorry that your kids experienced that. And I think that's part of the reason why we are also trying to make this awareness about Hindu Dharma, not just to Hindus who may not know, but to people who aren't Hindu. And I think all of that will continue on and hopefully get better as the word gets out. I mean, here we're celebrating Hindu Heritage Month, and this is our second year doing it. It wasn't done before that, at least not in any official way. And there is also a big change from last year to this year, where it has become more international versus it being more of North America type of thing. I do hope that one day the kids do go back to camp, because I know we went to camp and it was an amazing experience for us, which is why I'm sure they went.
Every year we were there, right?
Exactly.
So it was actually quite, I was shocked, to be honest, but
it's difficult, and I think that's part of what we're trying to change. And I think as a community, we should all work together. And I think we are working together, and this is a perfect example in showing that change to come. One thing that all of the families did say is your end goal is to see each one of you thrive. And it doesn't matter if it's Ba in her 90s or it's a child who's not even here yet. So I really do appreciate all of you working together and showing us how it is possible for everybody to thrive. Sonal, since I've got you, I'm going to start with you for the next question. Based on your personal experiences, what are some of the concrete ways in which your family is able to function as a whole unit?
So I would say one of the key pieces to that is communication, and making time and effort to spend time together, to speak to each other, to I talk with somebody in my family at least a few times a day, and that is I think that's been really important, to be able to take time out to answer the phone when someone calls, or we do family Zooms all the time. My sister lives in England. My niece turned 2 yesterday or the day before, and in the middle of the day we all stopped what we were doing and we got on a Zoom before she went to sleep. And it's not easy to do that all the time. And yes, thank you again to Zoom. I mean, even during COVID, we had cousin Zooms and family Zooms, and I just think it's important. We've been able to just, I think communication is very important. I think giving people their space is very important. I think we have been we try to not be in each other's faces all the time, and I think that has worked for us. And so ask me the question again, because I start to ramble and then I can't remember what you asked me to begin with.
No, you're doing a good job. I was saying, what are some of the concrete ways in which your families function as a whole unit?
Yeah, concrete ways. And so, look, I think it's, I will say my entire family is right now in Staten Island together. I think they're on here somewhere as participants. It's really just a matter of getting, finding the energy and the time and the will to spend time together. And it doesn't have to be physically, or just, like somebody was saying, like just every night, Jessica, we do JSR in my family, like a quick text at night, love you JSR, and just there, I think communication and knowing that somebody is present and letting people know that you're present for them, that they know that you will drop whatever you're doing if they need you, and I think my family's been really good at that. So other than time and communication, it's just love. We give each other a lot of tough love too. And that's, that I think for us, that really works. And so the concrete ways in which, and we're comfortable challenging each other. And I know I keep stressing this, but I think it's very important for growth, for each of us, for our children to grow, that we challenge each other in a loving, supportive way. And that's worked for us. They might disagree, but no one's speaking except for me. So I get to say what's up.
Well, I could say, on knowing the Patel family for beyond many years, no, you are saying exactly what is actually true. So what advice, suggestions would you give to others about the best way to pass on these Indian values and samskars to the next generation?
Are we still on me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say, for me, I think flexibility is really important. I think we all, as grown-ups, we take from the doctrines and from the samskara and from the learnings and teachings what is important to us, and I want my children to be able to do the same thing. And so in sort of thinking about how to pass something on, people have said you live by example, you lead by example, and that could not be further from the truth. I mean, I am who I am today because of my dada, my mom in particular. But also because of my brothers and my sister, and we just live lives that each of us can emulate in some way, but also to be flexible, to not feel, to not make someone feel bad if they don't believe the same thing as you about a certain thing. And I'm a former teacher, and this is very important to me, that you have to give children an open mind to grow. And I think that's important for adults as well. So in passing traditions down. We have sadly a language issue in my family too. My children, I blame my parents for not teaching my children Gujarati when they were taking care of them for so many years when they were younger. But my ba cannot communicate with my children, and it breaks her heart. And frankly, it breaks my heart when I have to translate. And frankly, the children want to speak with her, And so, and she has so much to share and so much to wisdom and life experience. We're talking a 92-year gap. That's a big life experience, So it's really just keep trying and make yourself available. And there's not, I kind of want to say, like, you should read your children books or you should pray together. And we don't do that. But I still think that I am passing down the core principles and morals of Hinduism in the way that I behave every day, and the way I speak to them every day, and with the way that I help them resolve their own challenges with Hinduism as a backdrop.
Thank you so much, Sonal, and for speaking on behalf of the Patel family. So Upadhyay family, I'm going to ask you similar to, based on your personal experiences, what are some of the concrete ways in which your family is able to function as a whole unit?
Yeah, so for us, I mean, honestly, what's been instilled in all of us since birth, childhood, I would say, I mean, I said it before in the dry runs, but it's that we've been instilled with this idea of truth. And, whether we went to Swadhyay sometimes, or we learned it from my mom or ba or something like that, we always had Satyam Vada was always something that was said. And, as kids, my brother and I, if we wanted to make sure that we were telling each other a truth, we'd be like, oh, say Satyam Vada, and that would happen because we knew that we could count on this upbringing where our parents were like, the truth will never fail you, right? So this capital T truth that I talked about was like, not just in what you say, but in what you do, being true to who you are, recognizing who you are as an individual, and then being true to that person. And I think, and then recognizing family members and being true to them and being true to who they are. And that kind of resolves the issue of us having different personalities, because we accept, we first learn that we are all different. We accept that we are all different. And in doing that, I think we make sure that we hold each other accountable to each of our truths. So, that's something that really keeps us functioning as a unit in general, because we recognize that about each other, and then we do hold each other accountable. And I think that's really important as a family to be able to do, is just to, to make sure that we're not just there to just unconditionally love, but to, on condition, criticize when necessary, because that's what family should be doing too, because we want each other to grow. And that's really how we function as a family.
Tell me, what suggestion or advice can you give to others in order to pass down Hindu dharma, Hindu values, samskars?
Yeah. So this was definitely my favorite part of the question, because I feel like I have so many examples of this, especially that now that I can bring up, like, I'll talk about my kids. The whole idea of Hinduism and dharma and sanskars, it's about legacy, right? And it's about how it's passed. So what we know is not worth much if we can't teach it. What we know, I can know the whole Gita backwards and forwards. I can know everything there is to know about Hinduism, but if I can't teach it, if I can't impart it, if I can't recognize that my audience needs to learn it a certain way, then it's not going to go anywhere. It'll probably end with me. And I think the idea of Hinduism and our culture and our customs and our religion in general and everything that it stands for it to carry on, we need to recognize that the people we're passing it on to are growing up at a different time. So when Ba grew up is so different from the world I grew up in, and it's even more different for my children. What my children, like I know Kaya was talking about, you know, with social media and, you know, the pressures, and I know Sol was talking about having to deal with people who don't accept who we are and how we are, or, you know, teaching our kids how to accept others. All these things are things that our children are facing. And so in order for me to communicate with my kids, some examples I gave is like, you know, my boys are 5 and 2.5, almost 3. So they're still small, and they do mimic. They're curious, and I like to feed that curiosity. But the best way for me to do it is not by preaching to them the same things my Bach was teaching me, because they don't get it, and they are probably bored with it. And you know, and so like I tell my kids, like, when we're praying, we put our hands together, and they're like, why do we do this? And why don't we just dance around? Why don't we do this? You know, and I'm like, okay, like, how do I make this appealing to my children? You know, and so to keep their hands like this instead of holding them together, I'm like, you know what? Your hands are like a rocket ship. So when you pray, like when you're praying into your hands, you're closing your eyes, the prayer goes into the rocket ship, and the rocket ship, it goes directly up to God, you know, and that's what we're doing. And so now I often hear, like, my older son will be like, Sanj, my younger son, he'll be like, hey, put your hands together. You gotta make the rocket ship. So he's not gonna hear you, you know? And so then I don't ever have to hold their hands together. I don't have to tell them to put your hands together. They just know that this is valuable. This prayer is valuable and needs to get to God. So I'm like, all right, yeah, absolutely. And like other examples are, you know, I really want them to learn so much. And so what I do is I think about my kids and what they love. And I'm like, you know, right now my kids are in a superhero stage. And so like their favorite JJ is Hanmanda. And I was like, I wonder why they like Hanmanda. And they're like, you know, he's super strong. And I'm, you know, they're like, oh, how can he tear his chest? And, you know, he's still alive and he's okay. Like, there's so many pictures of Hanmanji with his chest ripped open. And, you know, and to explain that, not telling the story didn't seem like it would register the same way as me saying, hey, guess what? You know who that is? That's the original Superman. He flies, he can carry a mountain. You can't shoot him, you can't hurt him, you can't throw arrows at him, you know, you can't do these things. And, you know, and then you watch Superman and it's the exact same thing. And so they relate to that. And I realize that that's what's going to keep the story alive, right? You know, and it's like so many questions, like, why is Krishna Bhagwan blue? Why does Shankar Bhagwan have snakes? And, you know, why are all these, like, why an elephant head for Gampati, you know? And what I realized that in explaining this to them, I was finding opportunities to really make these values seem like something that they want to own, you know, and they want to own these values because they want to be like them. You know, they want to emulate, not us because we're flawed, but they want to emulate God's because they want to do what God's do because they get to do cool things, you know? And so I think that there is just like there's something about making sure that we understand that Hinduism and our culture is less about how impressive my knowledge is. What it's more so about is how capable are we of transitioning all that to the next generation, and so on and so forth. And then teaching them how to do it. Later on when they're older, I'll probably have to teach them, like, hey, when your kids want to, like, you know, play video games, you can morph these gods into video game characters, make them something that you understand, but keep that the core value is always the same. The foundational value of everything we're teaching is the same. It's righteousness, truth, selflessness, and seva, and all sorts of things like that. We maintain that, but how we get to that might differ because of the time we're growing up and, you know, just the generation. And I feel like that's really important for us to, like, I'm really glad that my family's here because then they get to hear it and they get to understand it. So now maybe if it didn't click before, they're like, oh, that's why she talks about it the way she does. So, you know, and it's all really important. And I feel like my kids might not be able to sit down and, you know, do the exact same things. And maybe I went to Swadhyay and they didn't go to Swadhyay, and they might not know the whole Bhat front to back at the same age I did. But they're really getting something I maybe didn't, and they're getting this intrigue and the joy that comes with religion. And I feel like joy doesn't leave you as fast as ritual does, right? So when they go to college, when they leave, the joy of our culture will stay with them. Whereas even if they don't see ba, mom, anybody doing prayers or doing something, it won't be like a memory that fades. It'll be like something that they've owned and they've kind of internalized. And that's what I really want them to do. So.
Overall, it sounds like what you've done is you've tried to make it relatable to the kids.
Absolutely.
And if you can't do that, that's going to be where you're going to have the trouble, right?
Right.
Thank you so much, Sheetal. I appreciate it. So Dove family, last but not least, we're coming to you now. So based on your personal experiences, what are some of the concrete ways in which your family is able to function as a whole unit?
Okay, Mom, do you want to go, or I can say?
You go.
And maybe, Thorolji, I'll tie this to the second part of the question as well, into like, how do we pass the sound to keep it efficient?
Perfect, because that will be the next item that we'll
I know. We'll combine the questions, but
Sounds
I just
good.
say that everything that I've heard from Sheetal and it's so important. Whatever she was saying totally resonates with me as well. I mean, both the families, right? Because my kids are 10, 7, 5, and 3, right? And so we're in the same boat, right? Questions and how do you get them to understand this, be close, right? And I mean, one of the things for us is like, this is a generation, like everybody said, is they're very curious. They ask a lot of questions, right? And the biggest thing for us in terms of how do we, like, what advice do we have for other families as well? And based on what we've seen, is how do you of course, how do you understand it, but how do we teach them to be confident in their identity? Ultimately, at the end of the day, you can be whoever you are, but if you're not confident in yourself, whether in in our house, it's how do you be a confident Hindu, right? But we can even take that a step above and say, how do you be a confident person, right? So that's one of the things that we try really hard to instill, that proud feeling that, I am who I am and I'm proud of it and I'm confident, because we grew up in a generation where we were different, right? And we weren't necessarily as confident as we are today. But now, because of all the advances and everything, and we see how much Hindus have progressed in this world, they have amazing leaders that they can look for, right? And so that's one big thing for us, is confidence. The second thing is in terms of how do we pass this on, I think my advice is grandparents are like that magic touch. And I can't stress that enough. I think everybody would agree with me. There's only so much we can do as this generation. If we have parents who are alive, if we have grandparents who are alive, oh my gosh, they're like the hidden gem. So I'll give you an example. During COVID, we couldn't see our families very much. We couldn't fly, but my husband would drive our kids 10, 12 hours just so they could spend time with my parents. And that is like the true value that we see, is when they see that, when they go to Nani Nana's house or Dadi Dada's house, right? Those sanskars they get are so important. And then the other last thing is that, this may not be important to all the families, but it's really important to us. We took our kids to India and it was really, really hard taking all of these children to India in a plane. But my husband and I, we both grew up going to India. We have family there. And one thing that we agree on is that unless they're tied to Bharat in some way, shape, or form, they're not gonna feel that connection. And we live here, we live in the US, we've got the customs, we celebrate Diwali, we do all of this, right? But until you're there and you go visit India and you spend time with the family there, or you ride the trains there, or you ride a rickshaw, or you feel the love, or you feel the richness of that country, they're not going to get it. And so for us, it's very important to start taking our kids to India at a very young age. I sent my boys with my parents to India. I mean, and that was a big deal, right? But it's those types of things that we want to have them be a part of their upbringing. So one day when they're in their 30s and 40s and they're talking to their friends about how they grew up, and they said, oh, my mom used to make us like go to India with Nani and we did this, right? Those are things that are going to stick, I think, long term. So those are kind of the most important things for our family. And the only last thing I'll say is that we have something called the family motto in our house. So we've implemented something where the kids know what our family motto is, which is love, respect, protect. And we always say, what are the 3 rules of the house? The 3 rules of the house are always speak the truth, never lie. Second is always remember Hanumanji, because Hanumanji is our favorite god. And the third is always stay with your family, which means love, respect, protect. And lastly, the other three things that we say when you grow up and you say, what did you learn, right, from your parents? It's always keep Bhagwan in the center of your heart, mental game strong, and have confidence, which means you can do anything that you want. And we have those printed and listed in our house. And I'm like, if anything, if you could just remember these 3 things or these 6 things, you're good. I mean, let's not overcomplicate it. Just remember those things. And then hopefully, fingers crossed, everybody will, be okay in life. And I'll end with that. Mom, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
So I just want to add one thing, like Kea says, I heard Sheetal and that Patel family, and for kids, I know we want to teach them so many things in this world too. They have to be professional, they have to be doing this, but sometimes you have to stick with your principle on your roots. So maybe make Sunday morning, we have to go to Monday. That's all our family is doing. So hidden ways, this thing is giving something to them. Or you just tell your kids, okay, Mother's Day, what I want, can you do one shloka for me? Can you do one bhajan for me? So Mother's Day, instead of getting so many presents, when my kids were little, I still have those later. I told them, you have to become Bal Vihar teacher. That's all I want in my life. And because they have there in mind, they will read and they say, oh, we have to become a teacher too. So this is the very easy way to tell the kids, oh, you have to become teacher for Bal Vihar or work in the mandir. So the kids will think about that and they'll learn something. So that's the very easy way to pass them. Other thing I always say, Bhagwan, tell your kids, Bhagwan is there. Not we say God is there, different God, just one only God, and put Shraddha. That's the only thing. If you put Shraddha in your kids, tell the Bhagwan is there, he's going to help for you. No parents, no media, Bhagwan is there. And that's the only thing, if you're teaching your kids, that's help. Bhagwan is there and he will help you. And they have to pray, that's all. We don't need to teach so many things, just say Shraddha. Shraddha gives so much things. So that's I want to add.
So thank you so much to each and every one of our families, the Dave family, Upadhyay family, and Patel family. You guys were fantastic. We have a lot of questions for you. I do want to do a little bit of a summary in terms of the 3rd questions that all of you talked about. One of the main things that I noticed that each of you talked about was communication. So with the communication, it wasn't just about speaking, it's also about listening. Because if all of the generations are not listening to each other, it's very difficult to be able to learn and teach from each other. Give each other space. If you're honest and truthful to yourself and others, the rest will follow. So love was the other thing that all of you have portrayed throughout the afternoon today. And I think that is extremely important. Parents and grandparents are a hidden gem, Gaia, that couldn't have been said any better. They really are. And each of you have actually explained how each of you as a parent, you as a child, you as a grandchild, how all of you have been able to appreciate, probably especially more once you had children. So thank you for that. Keep trying and make yourselves available to each other. That actually has been another gem that you guys have talked about. And above all, well, maybe not above all, but one of the biggest things is being confident in your identity. If you're confident in yourself, in your identity as a person, it doesn't come across not even just as a person, but also as a Hindu. And I think overall, that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to make ourselves and our kids and their kids as confident as possible to be accepted and to accept others. And I think in general, that is what Hindu Dharma is all about, right? Acceptance. So thank you again to all of our families. At this time, I do invite...
Before we go on to Q&A, can I just say one more thing?
Sure, absolutely.
I just want to respond to what Hansanti said about having your children, just telling them to go to mandir on Sunday and do one thing for you for Mother's Day. I reserve my Sundays for me and my girls to sit around and have conversations and talk about the challenges they're facing in their lives and the decisions that they have to make. Sundays in my household are really for us to talk to each other about how we're going to live out Hindu sanskara as opposed to being at the mandir. And, you know, I appreciate my parents too, because my parents, as I was saying, you know, sometimes we have a tendency occasionally to be didactic about how to pass on tradition to children. And in my home, I can't stress this enough. It isn't about the rituality. It isn't about we need to do this one thing every day in order to, you know, instill in ourselves and in our communities and families, you know, what the Hindu beliefs are. And also about what Kaya was saying about India, I think that's critical. My kids have been to India. I plan to take them back as often as I can. You know, now that travel is more free, I want my children to see the live culture, to hear the live language, to go to the mandirs in India, which are magnificent and so much more powerful, I think, than some of the mandirs that I feel in the United States are not as, there might be focused on more material things than on the actual spirituality. But, you know, there is a real difference in the way that all of us are raising our children. And I don't think there's one right way. And I think every family chooses the way that works the best for them.
Thank you, Sonal, for adding that in. We appreciate it. At this time, we do have questions for all of our families. I am going to invite Shobha Patel. Shobhanti, if you are able to go through some of these questions with our families, that would be fantastic.
Yes, Toro, yeah, I echo what you just said. They have given us so many inspirational stories and also just very, very impressed. And actually, I'm also seeing a lot of good comments. The one says very inspirational discussion, indeed loving discussion there. And then these families are so inspirational. So I think that is the common theme. All of you have inspired us so well. So thank you for that. And so now we have few questions. Gunjan Agrawal, Gunjanji asked that, you know, it is a common occurrence in the upcoming generations that the kids constantly challenge the religion. I think you have also mentioned a few things about that. Some of them you would say, oh, I don't believe in God, or they don't believe in the relationships that should be only by choice, you know, cannot be forced with the other family members. So how would you deal with these issues? Any of you can answer that?
I can say something about that. So I think for me, I mean, my kids are too young right now to really like question the existence of God and whatnot. I think though it's always a possibility. I think what we need to probably focus on is teaching our kids teaching that next generation about not like fear mongering them about like the negatives of not believing, but rather the positives of believing. And so really playing up, you know, if you don't believe in God, you know, it's not like you don't believe in this, then guess what's going to happen to you? Like, it's going to be more, you know, like, don't you want to feel protected? Isn't it? Don't you want, like, so how I address anything where, like, if my kids are like, oh, I don't want to do that, I'm like, that's okay. Like, if you don't want to do that, that's okay, but I'm going to do it. And then, you know what, like, Jija is going to be so happy with he's going to be so excited that we did this arti or we did this. And then the kids, like, they'll just stay on time. They'll be like, okay, wait, no, I want to come too. And so, I mean, my kids are young. Again, I don't have to deal with like, I don't have to deal with these like other, like, you know, non-belief issues yet. For them, it's just, is it fun? So my bigger concern right now is to make it fun. And then I think we'll probably have to tackle the idea of, you know, belief or not later on. But as of right now, it's just pretty cool. God's pretty cool, and religion's really cool. And having like going to Garba and having JJ in the middle is like really cool. You know, all these things are just cool. Yeah.
And, you know, I'll add to that. I think that I mean, one of the things is I don't think it's the best idea to tell our children, no, what you're saying is wrong or what I'm saying is right. Because I think as a parent, and what I've learned is it takes years and years to establish trust. And you can't expect your children at the age of 20 to trust your parents and be, you know, open and talking with your parents if they haven't experienced it over the years. It's something that I think we as parents really have to work very hard at to inspire trust within our children, that they trust their parents. And that means a number of different things throughout the year. That means that we don't criticize them for, differences of opinions, rather what you said, talk to them about the benefits. So, I mean, for me, if they do come up to me with a question about, look, I don't believe in this, or I disagree with this, the biggest thing is listen to them, right? Just listen and let them know that they have a set of parents who will listen no matter what. Because guess what? If we shut them down right away and, have that kind of presence, when they're in college and something bad happens, do you think you're going to be the first person that they're going to call? No, right? We always say this. My husband and I are like, if we want to be the kind of parents that if something goes wrong in life, the first phone call they make is to either their mom and dad or their siblings.
Right.
But the way you can do that is if they trust you. So it's like having that open dialogue and conversation, ways to sneak in what you believe in a way, being creative, right? Of course, I think is really important. But I think ultimately it comes down to, how do you have your children trust you so that when you do get to a point and they disagree with you and you offer your opinion to them, they're going to say, you know what, I think my parents might be right? But they won't think that if they don't trust you. So I think ultimately it comes down to inspiring trust in them. And that takes a lot of hard work, I think.
Right.
Over the years.
Yeah, I just want to echo what both of you ladies so eloquently said. My children are older, they're 11 and almost 14. And I do think there comes a certain privilege, but also responsibility with raising Hindu women and young girls. And I always want my children to know that they have, again, open, safe space to come and speak with me. And the way that we create that is through conversation. And the way that we create that is they know that it's okay if they challenge something that I'm saying, but we have to have a conversation about it. And ultimately I win because I'm the grown-up, right? But, to some extent, there is a dialogue that they are being heard. This whole thing about children should be seen, not heard. It doesn't make sense to me. And especially when you're trying to instill religion or values or beliefs and morality, that our children in that world every day face a number of different situations where they have to make moral decisions, where they have to, at least mine at this age. We want to make sure that there's a balance, right? Make sure that they are critical thinkers and they're comfortable challenging things that maybe peer pressure, or maybe somebody is doing something else, or whatever the case is, that there is a real openness and trust. And and I think Hinduism preaches that. I think that so much of Hinduism for me is all of these stories that are told, all of the tales, all of the conversations that Krishna has with, they're conversations. And I think it's so critical in my life to have conversations. And that's what we have instilled in my family, is we talk about it. And then maybe we're swayed one way or the other, but it isn't this beat you over the head with it, and I think that's really important.
Right. Yeah. The best conversation is in Gita, right? And I do agree, making them wrong. I agree with you, making kids wrong about whatever their feelings are, that doesn't help to build the trust. So you guys are doing excellent job building a trust. Gaurangi asked, yes. Anybody saying? Okay. There is a question. How do Sonal and Sheetal feel about the importance of taking children to Bharat? And I think you have already addressed that, right? All of you see the importance of taking them to India and, show them the temples you talked about, beautiful temples in Bharat. And so the third question is, can you share with us any specific daily rituals that you practice together?
Well, I've said it. I mean, we do Aarti every evening.
Okay.
And one thing that we have tried to, I'm sorry, there's so many background noise here. So
you know what? Your background is wonderful. I love the girls coming in and out.
I know I never get 2 hours alone. So you had a lot of, audience members, but I think for us, we do Aarti every evening. It doesn't always run smoothly. Someone's crying, someone is throwing things, someone doesn't participate. But I think it's that discipline of doing something over and over again, that becomes a habit. And for us, it's not necessarily about doing the Aarti. It's about being together as a family. So it doesn't have to be Aarti. It could be, dinner time. It could be whatever. One of the things I started to do, and I have not succeeded at, was after Aarti, I want just even 30 seconds of deep breathing and mindfulness. I'm trying to implement a little bit of meditation with these kids. And you can imagine how challenging that is. We fail miserably every day. It lasts, and they're looking at each other to see whose eyes are open. And I'm like, just close your eyes. All we want you to do is just to be still. And I'm trying to teach that to them at an early age. Again, it does not happen well at all. But we do that every day. Sometimes this lasts 30 seconds, sitting there in silence and deep breathing and doing some kind of meditation. Sometimes, if we're lucky, it lasts 45 seconds, But the point is that it teaches them to be present, and it teaches them that they need to take time out of their busy day to focus and look inward. And whatever that looking inward is, it could be, just sitting with your family, could be Aarti, but it's like and it's too difficult to do many things, just pick one thing. If you feel like you can implement that, we do that. And the other thing is, before they go to school, they just do Haath Jode to Bhagwan. That's it. Because we don't have time to do puja or Aarti or anything in the morning. So it's very simple, like just go to Bhagwan, pray your hands, ask Bhagwan to have, that you have a good day, and then leave the house, right? And that's the most we can do at this point with the 4 kids in the house. But I think, sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't.
Right. That's wonderful. I teach mindful meditation, so even the adults cannot stay for too long being mindful for more than 2 minutes. So that's a very good practice that you're doing from this young age. Anyone else would like to respond about any specific daily ritual?
I think I can add to that. I'm kind of with Kay on this. Like we do try to teach. I mean, again, my boys are small, so it's probably a little different with a 3-year-old, almost 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And 2 boys together will egg each other on, and trying to be mindful turns into who can do the best somersaults, and so it doesn't really work out the way I want it to. But I know, like, from a family perspective, when we were all together, we would do the Bhavani every night. Our families did Hanuman Chalisa and did all prayers at nighttime. I know, and every morning, I know Bobby was telling me that at their house, everybody in the house in the morning after they take a bath, they all sit in the mandir for a little bit on their own time. Even if it's 5 minutes, you spend some time at the mandir. At my house, with my kids, our rituals are like, we do pratna before going to bed. And something else I've kind of incorporated outside of maybe like the language that they wouldn't understand. Like they understand that I'm doing pratna, they don't know what I'm saying. But both of my like Hanuman loving boys have Hanumanji in their rooms. And so they tell JJ about their day before they go to sleep. If they've been extra naughty, they do tell God that they were a little naughty. And so, I mean, I think we've talked about this, but like communication, it helps children too, right? It helps their neural pathways, and it just helps their development, because then they know that they can't talk to a person, but they're talking to the being that is also in charge of, their rewards, their punishments, their eternal life, so it makes them more comfortable with the relationship. Like my husband always says to me, he's like, when the way I was brought up, my dad taught me how to have a relationship with God. And it was almost the way his dad taught him was like almost to have a friendly relationship, because your friends are people who you turn to, and it's like, it's a tangible, right? It's like your friends are people that are there physically. And since God can't physically be with you at all times, having that type of relationship with God mentally makes you more comfortable. Being like, he's a wonderful friend. So he's like, I want to be a really wonderful person, because, to God, I want to be a wonderful person. And same thing with my kids now. I feel like they're part of their nightly ritual is that they talk to God. They tell JJ about their day, and if they've been naughty, they have to look him in the eye, and they're not ready for that conversation. So they strive to be better the next day, because they don't want to look Hanumanji in the eye, because they know this man can carry mountains. And so nobody wants to look Superman in the eye.
Right. And they want to fly in the rocket too.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Wonderful. That's great. Okay, so,
And
okay,
you
go
know, I
ahead.
mean, I think, sorry, when you were asking about ritual or like what we do on a daily basis, it's like the little things that count, right? And I was like, I saw my kids come in here and I was like, maybe I'll put them to the test if they're actually listening to what my, family motto is, right? So
Yeah.
Beer, and this is Raj.
Oh, hi, Raj.
What are the, so we talked about this, what is our, what are the 3 rules of our house?
So always tell the truth, always remember Hanumanji, and always stay with your family. The 3 things that go with that is love, respect, protect.
And Raj, when you grow up and you say, what did your parents teach you? What are you going to say?
Always keep the mind in the center of your heart, mental game strong, and always have confidence, which means you can do it.
So I guess they are listening. And
Hey, wonderful.
They must be listening to something. And even if it's just a little bit, I think the kids will pick it up.
Well, they just showed the confidence. So well spoken. Thank you for those rules. I think we are going to adapt them too. Okay, Raj? Okay. Yeah, so go ahead. I think Sona?
So this will be very short. So we do not have any, sort of rituals or religious-based routines that we do every day. Instead of talking to God, my children talk to me. We find about 15, 20 minutes every night to either sit together in silence or they come and lay in my bed with me, and we have time where I can, speak to them. They can tell me about some challenges that they're facing. I can really bring them all of my teachings and learnings to their day-to-day life. So we don't do Aarti in the morning, and other than saying Jai Sitaram to each other before we go to sleep, which we never go to sleep without saying Jai Sitaram, there's no formal ritual. But I think this goes back to what I was saying to you, in my family, at least my nuclear family, the spirituality that we bring, we have Hanuman, statue. We have, my older daughter's name is Meera, my younger one's middle name is Radha. Krishna is a big part of our home, and it pervades our life and the choices that we make every day. So I think I'm one of the few families that we do not have a very ritualistic, prayer-based, routine that we do together. But there are other ways, I think, to keep the traditions going.
Yeah, like you said, what works the best for each family is what to do. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Kritika ji. Thank you so much. Thank you. So appreciative of all of you coming. And this was a really good session. Thank you. Go ahead, Kritika ji.
Thank you, Shobha ji, and all panelist families for our QA session. Now I would like to invite Neelam Jaiswal for closing this event. Let me introduce Neelam ji. Dr. Neelam Jaiswal is a scientist and worked for Procter & Gamble for 15 plus years. From last several years, Neelam ji is involved in VHPA activities. Neelam ji is the director of the Hindu Women Network. Neelam ji is also national coordinator for fundraising events for Support a Child project. She was also the editor of VHPA Seva Patri newsletter.
Thank you, Kritika ji. Namaskar. I have great appreciation to our keynote speaker, Didi Maa ji, for her inspirational guidance, and also Yashaswini Desai ji for her conversation with Didi Maa ji. I also want to express my gratitude to all of the panelists. You were awesome for your time and efforts in giving an outstanding and phenomenal advice to all of us. Your personal stories gave a strong message to the audience. In my personal experience, I can say that I have seen that when the multi-generation families, they live together, family bonds are very strong. This is how I grew up. Moreover, the closeness between the grandchildren and grandparents keep actually the older adult very sharp, enhance their social connection, and also solidifies their family relationship. Many thanks to National Hindu Women's Network core team for all their efforts to bring this event to all of you today, and also Nirmala Reddy ji for managing the technical aspect of this event. Above all, I appreciate your time, you audience, your attention and participation in joining this event. Let's end this one by doing the Shanti mantra. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिना, सर्वे सन्तु निरामया, सर्वे भद्रान् पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवता। ओम शांति शांति शांति। धन्यवाद।